The summer of 1955 clung to Millfield, Ohio like a damp wool blanket, heavy and unrelenting. Emma Carter knelt on the creaky oak floorboards of her small clapboard house, sorting through her late husband Nathan Hayes's belongings. The air smelled of dust and motor oil, a faint trace of Nathan's life as a mechanic at the local garage. His death 2 weeks ago in a car crash, a tire blowout on Route 33, had left her hollow, moving through grief like a ghost. The living room, with its faded floral curtains and worn sofa, felt too quiet without his heavy footsteps or the clink of his toolbox. She sifted through his things, not for closure, but for necessity. Bills were piling up, and the bank needed proof of his assets. Emma's fingers brushed a leather-bound ledger tucked beneath a stack of flannel shirts in his dresser. Her breath caught as she opened it. Page after page showed bank transfers, half of Nathan's monthly $200 salary, wired faithfully to Susan Miller. Emma's heart thudded. Susan. Nathan's high school sweetheart, the one he'd mentioned only once, his voice tight with something Emma couldn't place then. Each entry was meticulous, $100 to Susan Miller, dated the first of every month for 6 years. 6 years of their 10-year marriage. She turned the page, and a photograph slipped out, fluttering to the floor like a dead leaf. Emma picked it up, her hands trembling. There was Nathan, his arm around Susan, her auburn hair catching the sunlight. A boy, maybe 5, stood between them, grinning, his eyes mirroring Nathan's hazel ones. They looked like a happy and whole family standing on a picnic blanket by Lake Hope. Emma's chest tightened. She'd never seen Nathan smile like that with her, not in their wedding photo or quiet Sunday walks. The back of the photo bore a date last summer when Nathan had claimed he was working overtime. Her mind reeled, but there was more. Beneath the ledger lay a folded document, its edges yellowed. Nathan's will, handwritten and notarized. Emma's eyes scanned the words, each one a knife. Half my assets, including my share of the house at 142 Maple Street, to Susan Miller and her son Tommy unconditionally. The house, her house bought with her savings from waitressing at Rosie's Diner, the one she'd scrubbed and painted to make a home, was half signed away. To Susan, to Tommy. Not a word about Emma, the wife who'd mended his clothes, cooked his dinners, and waited up nights for him. The room spun. Emma clutched the ledger, her knuckles white as memories flooded her. Nathan's late nights, his vague excuses about helping a friend, the way he'd hush her when she asked about their tight budget. He'd say, "Don't spend so carelessly, Emma," while she wore patched dresses and skipped meals to stretch their funds. He'd been funneling money to Susan, building a life for another woman's child. The betrayal sank into her bones, cold and sharp. Before she could process it, the front door slammed open. Susan Miller stood there, her red lipstick stark against her pale face, Tommy clinging to her skirt. Her eyes sharp as a hawk's swept over the room. Emma said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "I'm here about Nathan's will. This house is half ours now. Tommy's and mine. You'll need to make room." Tommy, his small face smug, tugged at his mother's hand. "Mama, when can we move in? I want the big bedroom." Emma's pulse roared in her ears. "This is my home," she said, her voice low but shaking. "I paid for it. I built it." Susan stepped closer, her perfume overwhelming like overripe roses. "Nathan wanted us to be taken care of. You wouldn't go against his wishes, would you?" Her smile was a challenge, her son's gaze mocking. Emma's chest burned, pain radiating down her arm. She stumbled, vision blurring as rage and grief collided. The last thing she saw was Susan's smirk before darkness swallowed her. Her heart stopped, a final betrayal etched into her last breath. But this isn't where Emma's story ends. If her journey of heartbreak and redemption moves you, hit that like button, drop a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe to our channel for more tales of courage and second chances. Stay tuned. Emma's fight is just beginning. Emma Carter's eyes snapped open, her chest heaving like she'd just surfaced from a deep dive. She was no longer on the floor of her Millfield home, but sitting on a hard wooden bench in the stuffy Millfield night school classroom. The year was 1948. She was 18 again, her hands clutching a crisp envelope. The air smelled of chalk dust and polished oak, the late spring heat seeping through the open windows, carrying the hum of cicadas from the Ohio fields outside. Her teacher, Mr. Thompson, stood at the front, his gray suit slightly rumpled, a warm smile on his face. "Emma Carter, congratulations," he said, his voice rich with pride. "You're accepted to Columbus Medical College, the first woman from our night school to make it to university. We're all so proud." He patted her shoulder, his hand steady and kind. "Study hard, Emma. You'll save lives with that medical knowledge one day." Emma nodded, her throat tight with emotion. I will, Mr. Thompson. I won't let you down or this country that's given me this chance. Her voice was firm, but inside her heart raced. She wasn't just 18-year-old Emma full of naive dreams. She was also Emma who died in 1955, betrayed by Nathan Hayes, her husband, who poured their life into Susan Miller and her son Tommy. Memories of her past life surged like a flood, vivid and raw. She saw Nathan's ledger, his photo with Susan, and the will giving away her home. She felt the sting of Susan's smirk, the weight of a decade spent sacrificing her dreams for a man who never loved her. But this time it was different. Her death had unlocked something, a second chance triggered by the regret and rage of her final moments. She wasn't just reborn, she was awake, her mind sharp with the knowledge of what could have been. She clutched the acceptance letter tighter, its edges digging into her palms, a lifeline to a future she'd lost once. "Mr. Thompson," she said, her voice steadying, "please don't tell anyone about this yet." He raised an eyebrow, puzzled. "Why's that?" Emma forced a smile, thinking fast. "I'm worried someone might try to take my spot. You know how folks talk in town." He nodded, understanding the small-town gossip mill. "My lips are sealed, Emma. This is your moment." She thanked him, slipping the envelope into her satchel. As she stepped outside, the June breeze brushed her cheeks, warm and alive, but it couldn't dispel the storm in her heart. Was she truly back? The weight of her past life, resentment, injustice, helplessness pressed against her ribs. She ran to the oak grove behind the school, collapsing against a tree, and let the tears come hot and silent. In her past life, Emma had given up everything for Nathan. She'd been 18, starry-eyed when their families arranged their engagement to unite their neighboring farms. A Wet'suwet'en veteran with a quiet charm, Nathan seemed like a safe harbor after her parents died in the 46 flu outbreak. She'd worked nights at Rosie's diner to afford night school, dreaming of becoming a doctor. But Nathan had pleaded with her to stay in Millfield to care for his aging parents, promising they'd build a life together. She'd believed in their quiet companionship, trading college for a ring that never came. Now she saw it clearly. He hadn't needed her love, only her labor, cooking, cleaning, tending to his parents while he sent money to Susan. Emma wiped her eyes, resolve hardening like steel. This time she'd live for herself. No more sacrifices for Nathan Hayes. She walked home, the gravel crunching under her worn shoes, past fields of corn swaying in the dusk. Her small bedroom with its patched quilt and single window felt like a sanctuary. She knelt by her bed, sliding the tin box from beneath it, a relic from her mother, rusted but sturdy. She tucked the acceptance letter inside next to a locket from her parents and locked it tight. This letter was her future, her escape to Columbus, where she'd study medicine and make a mark on the world. The calendar on her desk caught her eye as she stood, June 15th, 1948. 1 month until she could board the train to Columbus. 1 month to outmaneuver Nathan, Susan, and the life that had trapped her. She straightened, her jaw set. The cicadas sang outside a chorus of second chances, and Emma swore she'd never let anyone steal her dreams again. The June sun dipped low over Millfield, Ohio, painting the cornfields gold as Emma Carter walked home from the oak grove, her college acceptance letter in the tin box under her bed. The gravel crunched under her worn Oxfords, each step a reminder of her vow: no more sacrifices for Nathan Hayes. Her small house on Maple Street came into view, its white paint peeling under the weight of summer humidity. The porch sagged, the swing creaking in the breeze, and the faint scent of honeysuckle drifted from the neighbor's yard. Inside, the kitchen clock ticked loudly, marking the hours until she could escape to Columbus Medical College. But as she lit the stove to boil water for tea, memories of her past life flooded back, sharp and unyielding like a film reel she couldn't stop. In 1948, Emma had been 18, a girl with dreams bigger than Millfield's dusty roads. Her parents, hard-working farmers, had died in the 46 flu outbreak, leaving her alone at 16. The Hayes family, their neighbors, stepped in, offering food and a place to sleep when the bank nearly took her farm. Nathan Hayes, 22, and fresh from the war, was their pride, a quiet, broad-shouldered veteran with hazel eyes that seemed to carry the weight of Normandy. Their grandfathers, over moonshine and cards, had arranged their engagement years before, tying the Carter and Hayes farms together. Emma didn't mind. Nathan's shy smiles and rare, soft words, like when he fixed her broken bicycle, made her heart flutter. She'd thought it was love. By 17, she was waitressing at Rosie's diner, saving every nickel for night school, her eyes set on becoming a doctor. When the Columbus acceptance letter came, she'd run to Nathan breathless, expecting him to share her joy. Instead, his face clouded. "Emma, please don't go," he'd said, his voice low. "My parents are getting older. They need help. I need you here. She'd searched his eyes, hoping for pride, but found only a plea. Foolishly, she believed he couldn't bear to be apart from her. She gave up her dream, trading the letter for a promise of a shared life. She moved into his house, cooked his meals, tended his parents' garden, and waited for a never-to-be wedding. She poured herself into being the perfect fiancé for 10 years, believing their quiet companionship was enough. Now reborn with the clarity of her past life's betrayal, Emma saw the truth. Nathan hadn't needed her love, he needed a caretaker. While she scrimped on patched dresses, he sent half his mechanic's salary to his high school sweetheart, Susan Miller. Susan, with her auburn curls and dancer's grace, had been the talk of Millfield High. Nathan and his army buddy, James Miller, loved her, but Susan chose James, a lieutenant, with a brighter future. When James died saving Nathan in a 1944 ambush, Nathan carried the guilt like a stone. Susan arrived in Millfield 6 months ago, widowed with young Tommy, and Nathan's old feelings resurfaced. He never told Emma, but the ledger, the photo, the will, they laid it bare. He'd built a secret family with Susan while Emma played the fool. The kettle whistled, snapping Emma back to the present. She poured her tea, the steam curling like her resolve. In her past life, she'd been blind, giving up her dreams for a man who saw her as a convenience. This time, she'd rewrite her story. She glanced at the calendar, June 15, 1948. 1 month until the train to Columbus. She'd need money, train fare, tuition, a new start. Her diner savings were meager, but she'd find a way. The tin box under her bed held more than a letter. It had her future. As she sipped her tea, the bitter taste mirrored her heart. Nathan Hayes would not steal this life from her again. The kitchen of the Maple Street house smelled of flour and onions as Emma Carter chopped vegetables for a simple stew, the knife's rhythm steady against the wooden board. It was June 20th, 1948, 5 days since her rebirth, and the Ohio evening buzzed with crickets outside the open window. The radio played a faint Ella Fitzgerald tune, her voice smooth as velvet, a quiet rebellion against the life Emma had once lived for Nathan Hayes. She wore her faded blue dress patched at the hem, but her posture was different, straighter, unyielding. She was no longer the Emma who'd bend to please. The front door creaked open, and Nathan's heavy boots thudded on the floorboards. Emma. "I'm home," he called, his voice carrying the easy confidence of a man used to being waited on. Behind him trailed Susan Miller, her floral perfume cutting through the kitchen's warmth, and Tommy, her 5-year-old son, clutching a toy truck. Emma's eyes flicked to the living room, where Tommy's toys, a red fire engine, a stuffed bear, sprawled across her sofa as if claiming the space. Susan's coat hung over a chair, its bright pattern clashing with Emma's muted curtains. They were intruders in her home, yet Nathan acted as if it were normal. "Emma, are you making meatloaf tonight?" Nathan asked, loosening his work shirt. He stood close to Susan, their shoulders brushing Tommy, tugging at his hand. "Tommy's hungry after preschool." Emma set the knife down, her gaze cold. "I'm tired, Nathan. I worked a double shift at Rosie's. If you want meatloaf, make it yourself." Her voice was flat, starkly contrasting to the old Emma, who'd have rushed to the stove eager to please. Nathan blinked, caught off guard. "You okay, Emma? You don't sound like yourself." Susan stepped forward, her smile tight, her auburn hair catching the lamplight. "Oh, Emma, don't worry about it. I can whip something up if you're not feeling well." Her tone was syrupy, but her eyes were sharp, assessing. Tommy piped up, "Mama, I want Daddy's meatloaf." The word daddy hung in the air like a slap. Emma's fingers tightened on the counter, but she forced a smile thin and sharp as a blade. "Daddy," she said, her voice dripping with irony. "That's new." Nathan's face flushed, his hazel eyes darting to Susan. "He's just a kid, Emma. He blurts things out. I told him he could call me, which made him feel safe." Susan nodded, clutching Tommy's shoulder. "Nathan's been so kind since James passed. You know, James saved his life in the war. Nathan feels he owes us." Her voice trembled, but Emma saw the calculation in her eyes the way she leaned into Nathan's arm. Emma's stomach churned memories of her past life, flashing Nathan's ledger, half his salary to Susan, the will, giving away her home. She'd once believed his excuses swallowed her hurt to be the good fiancé. Not anymore. "You owe James, Nathan, not me," she said coolly. "I'm not cooking tonight. There's stew if you're hungry, or take them to the diner." She turned back to her vegetables, dismissing them. Nathan's jaw tightened, but he said nothing, leading Susan and Tommy to the table. Susan's voice softened, a practiced fragility. Emma, I hope you don't think I'm intruding. We're just grateful for Nathan's help. Emma didn't respond, her knife slicing through carrots with precision. Tommy whined, I don't want stew. I want meatloaf. Nathan hushed him, his voice sharp. Eat what's here, Tommy. The boy pouted, kicking the table leg, and Emma felt a flicker of amusement. Her indifference rattled them. As they ate, Emma sat apart sipping water, her mind on the tin box under her bed. The acceptance letter was her ticket out, but she needed money, train fare, books, a dorm deposit. Her diner tips wouldn't cut it. She'd have to sell something, maybe her old books or the scarf she'd knitted for Nathan. The thought of parting with her things didn't sting. They were relics of a life she'd burned away. The stew cooled untouched before her, the radio's jazz a quiet anthem to her new resolve. Nathan glanced at her uneasy, but Emma's eyes were fixed on the future, a month away in Columbus, where no one would call her a maid in her own home. The late June dusk draped Millfield, Ohio in a soft purple haze, the air thick with the scent of cut grass and distant coal smoke from the train yard. Emma Carter stood in her backyard, the Maple Street house looming behind her, its sagging porch, a reminder of a life she was determined to leave. She held a matchstick, its tiny flame flickering against the twilight, and stared at a crumpled marriage license in her other hand. The document found in Nathan Hayes's desk drawer was dated 6 months ago, January 1948, when Susan Miller and her son Tommy arrived in town. Nathan had sworn he'd filed it with the county clerk, another lie, a step toward their official union. Emma's lips pressed into a thin line as she lit the paper, watching it curl and blacken in the tin bucket at her feet. The flames danced, mocking the promises she'd once believed. She'd discovered the license that morning, tucked beneath Nathan's work receipts. Her reborn memories screamed the truth. Nathan had rushed to the train station 6 months ago to meet Susan, claiming a late shift at the garage. Naively, Emma had cooked a roast to celebrate their engagement, waiting alone until midnight. Now the acrid smoke stung her eyes, but she felt no tears, only resolve. This license, like her past life, was ash. She was done being Nathan's caretaker, sacrificing her dreams for a man, funneling half his salary to Susan while telling Emma to scrimp. The back door creaked and Nathan's voice cut through the quiet. Emma, what's that smell? Are you burning something? He stepped outside, Susan and Tommy trailing behind their silhouettes, framed by the kitchen's yellow light. Susan's floral dress caught the glow and Tommy clutched a toy plane, his small face curious. Emma turned her expression cold as the evening breeze. Just trash, she lied, kicking dirt over the bucket's embers. Nothing that matters anymore. Nathan frowned, his hazel eyes narrowing. You sure smells like paper. You're not burning my work stuff, are you? His tone hinted at accusation, but Emma met his gaze unflinching. I said it's nothing. Susan stepped closer, her perfume cloying her smile too sweet. Oh, Emma, you look tired. Why don't we handle dinner? Tommy's starving after preschool. Tommy nodded, whining. I want hamburgers, Daddy. The word daddy hit like a stone, but Emma's face stayed smooth, her heart locked. Daddy? Huh? She said, her voice edged with sarcasm. You're moving fast, Nathan. He flushed, rubbing his neck. He's just a kid, Emma. I told him it's okay to call me that. Makes him feel safe. Susan's hand rested on Tommy's shoulder, her eyes glinting with something Emma now recognized: calculation. Susan said Nathan's been a godsend since James died, her voice soft but deliberate. You know James saved his life in the war. Nathan feels responsible. The old Emma would have nodded, swallowed her hurt, and served them dinner. Not this, Emma. Responsible or not, I'm not cooking, Emma said flatly. There's bread and peanut butter inside. Help yourselves. She brushed past them, heading for the kitchen, her mind on the tin box under her bed. Her Columbus Medical College acceptance letter was safe, but she needed money, train fare, tuition, and a dorm deposit. Her diner tips weren't enough. She'd sell her old school books, maybe the quilt she'd sewn for Nathan. Every dollar was a step toward freedom. Nathan followed his boots heavy on the floorboards. Emma, what's wrong with you? You're acting cold. Tommy's hungry. His voice sharpened, but Emma didn't turn. Then feed him, she said, pouring herself water. I worked 10 hours at Rosie's today. I'm not your maid. Susan gasped softly, a practiced sound, and Tommy whined louder, kicking a chair. Nathan sighed, his shoulders slumping. Fine, I'll make something. But you're not yourself, Emma, she almost laughed. Not myself, good. She sat at the table, sipping her water, watching Nathan fumble with a loaf of bread and a jar of jam. Susan hovered her face, a mask of concern, but her eyes darted to Emma, sizing her up. The radio played a low jazz tune, Ella Fitzgerald's voice weaving through the tension. Emma's gaze drifted to the calendar, June 20th, 1948. 10 days until she'd visit Nathan's parents to prevent the crisis that had derailed her college plans last time. 10 days to outmaneuver Susan's growing hold on her home. She'd sell the radio Nathan gave Tommy the previous week, $50 she'd demand to cover her share of its cost. Nathan owed her that much. As they ate their makeshift meal, Emma's indifference was a shield. Nathan glanced at her uneasy, but she looked past him out the window where fireflies blinked in the dusk. The future was hers, and no one, not Nathan, not Susan, would steal it again. The Greyhound bus rattled along Route 33, its engine a low growl as it carried Emma Carter toward the Hayes family farm on June 30th, 1948. The Ohio countryside blurred past rolling hills dotted with barns, the air heavy with the scent of hay and impending rain. Emma sat by the window, her satchel clutched tight the tin box with her Columbus Medical College acceptance letter inside. Her reborn memories had warned her in her past life Nathan's father George had fallen ill in July, and his mother Clara had broken her leg chasing a folk remedy in a storm. Emma had stayed to nurse them, missing her college start date. Not this time. She'd act first, secure her future, and leave the Hayes family behind. The bus stopped in Athens, and Emma stepped off her Oxfords, crunching on gravel. The Hayes farm was a mile walk, its red barn weathered but proud against the green fields. She knocked on the door, and Clara answered, her gray hair pinned back, her apron flour-dusted. "Emma, what a surprise," she said, her smile warm but tinged with worry. "Is everything all right?" Emma nodded, forcing a smile. "Just wanted to check on you and George. Nathan's tied up at the garage." In truth, she'd told Nathan she was visiting her aunt to avoid his questions. Inside the farmhouse smelled of baked apples and wood polish. George sat by the radio, his face pale, a cough rattling his chest. Emma's heart sank. She recognized the signs from her past life. "George, you don't look well," she said, touching his forehead. It was warm. "We need to get you to the hospital," Clara protested. "It's just a cold, Emma. No need to fuss." But Emma was firm. "I've seen this before. Let's not wait." She called the town doctor, who arranged for George to be driven to Athens Memorial. Tests showed early pneumonia, which is treatable with rest and medicine. Clara, relieved, stayed by his side, sparing her the mountain trek that had broken her leg last time. Emma stayed a week, cooking hearty soups, chopping firewood, and scrubbing floors. Clara called her a blessing, and George gripped her hand, his eyes grateful. "You're a good girl, Emma. Nathan's lucky." Emma smiled thinly, her heart heavy. The Hayeses had helped her after her parents' death, but they'd never fully approved of her, a country girl with no status to boost Nathan's prospects. In her past life, she'd seen herself as their daughter-in-law, duty-bound to stay. Now she was done with that role. She bought them groceries and a new kettle, ensuring no setbacks, then boarded the bus back to Millfield, her satchel lighter but her resolve heavier. The house felt foreign when she opened her front door on July 7th. Susan's floral scarf draped the couch, Tommy's toy soldiers littered the floor, and a pair of women's gloves, not hers, sat on the table. Nathan emerged from the bedroom, his shirt unbuttoned, startled. "Emma, you're back early." Susan followed, her auburn hair loose, her smile faltering. "Oh, Emma, I didn't expect you," she said, smoothing her dress. Emma's eyes narrowed. Clearly, Nathan stammered, "It's not what it looks like. Susan's been scared, a guy's been lurking near her place. I let them stay here while you were gone." Emma's reborn memories flashed. Susan's stalker was likely a lie, a ploy to invade her home. She scanned the room, her books pushed aside, Susan's perfume bottles on her vanity. "How generous of you, Nathan," she said, her voice ice cold. "But this is my house. They move out tomorrow." Susan's eyes flashed with annoyance, quickly masked. "Of course, Emma. We'll be gone by morning. I'm so sorry to impose." Her voice was sweet, but Emma caught the edge, a challenge. Emma checked the tin box under her bed that night, and her acceptance letter was safe. She slept lightly, waking to every creak, her satchel beside her. The calendar showed July 8th, 3 weeks until her train to Columbus. She'd sell more belongings, her old typewriter, Nathan's scarf. Every cent brought her closer to freedom. As dawn broke, Susan and Tommy packed slowly, Tommy whining, "I don't want to leave Daddy's house." Susan hushed him, but her glance at Emma was sharp, a silent promise to return. Emma stood at the door, arms crossed, watching them go. The morning air was cool, the fields quiet, but inside her a fire burned. She was no longer the Emma who'd wait. Columbus was calling, and nothing would stop her. The morning of July 10th, 1948, dawned over Millfield, Ohio, with a golden haze, the air thick with the scent of dew-soaked clover, and the faint rumble of a distant train. Emma Carter stood in her small kitchen on Maple Street washing breakfast dishes, the soap suds clinging to her hands like fleeting dreams. The radio played Ella Fitzgerald's My Happiness, its smooth notes a quiet defiance against the life she'd once lived for Nathan Hayes. Her blue dress, patched but clean, hung loosely on her frame, a reminder of the years she'd scrimped while Nathan sent half his salary to Susan Miller. The calendar on the wall showed 3 weeks until her train to Columbus Medical College. Every dish she scrubbed brought her closer to that escape, but her heart beat with caution. Her acceptance letter, hidden in the tin box under her bed, was her lifeline, and she'd guard it fiercely. The front door swung open and Tommy Miller burst in his toy airplane, buzzing as he ran around the living room. Susan followed, her auburn hair pinned up her floral dress, bright red, the one Emma had admired in the shop window last spring, swishing with every step. Nathan trailed behind, his mechanic's overalls smudged with grease, his hazel eyes avoiding Emma's. "Emma, we're just stopping by," he said, his voice too casual. "Tommy wanted to play here." Emma's gaze flicked to the red dress, a sting of betrayal sharp in her chest. Nathan had promised to buy it for her birthday, August 1st, but there it was, clinging to Susan's curves like a taunt. Emma dried her hands, her expression cool. "Play quietly, Tommy," she said, her voice steady but firm. Tommy ignored her, dropping his plane and grabbing a stack of papers from her desk, her old schoolwork notes from night school chemistry. He began folding one into a paper boat, his small fingers creasing the page. Emma's heart lurched. For a moment she saw her acceptance letter in his hands, its crisp edges mangled. "Tommy, stop," she snapped, snatching the paper from him. He wailed, snot and tears streaking his face, and collapsed into Susan's arms. "Emma, how could you?" Susan said, trembling with practiced hurt, clutching Tommy like a shield. "He's just a child. Why take it out on him?" Nathan stepped forward, his jaw tight. "Emma, that was uncalled for. Apologize to Tommy." Emma unfolded the paper, her hands shaking, and relief washed over her. It was just her old notes, not the letter. But the scare ignited a fury she couldn't quell. Tommy had already torn her workbook, once scattering pages across the floor. She wouldn't let her future be touched, not even by a child. "I'm not apologizing," Emma said, her tone ice cold. "He shouldn't touch my things." She turned to Susan, her eyes locking on the red dress. "Lovely dress, Susan. Nathan picked it out for you?" Susan's cheeks flushed, her smile faltering. "Oh, this." She said something I found at the shop, smoothing the fabric. Nathan shifted uncomfortably, his gaze on the floor. "Emma, it's just a dress," he muttered. "Don't make a fuss." Emma's lips curved into a humorless smile. She saw it now, Susan's calculated moves, Nathan's oblivious betrayal. She'd have swallowed the hurt, cooked them dinner, and smiled through the pain in her past life. Not anymore. "Keep him away from my desk," she said, turning to leave. Tommy's wails grew louder. "Bad lady, I hate you," Susan hushed him, her eyes flashing with something sharp, anger, maybe fear. Emma didn't care. She strode to her bedroom, dropped to her knees, and slid the tin box from under the bed. The acceptance letter was safe, its edges crisp, the seal unbroken. She tucked it into her satchel, zipped it shut, and vowed to carry it until she boarded the train. That evening, Nathan knocked on her door, his voice soft. "Emma, can we talk?" She sat on her bed, the satchel beside her, and nodded. He stood awkwardly, rubbing his neck. "Susan and Tommy are gone. You're upset, but they're just a widow and her kid. I owe them. James saved my life in the war." Emma's gaze was steady, unyielding. "You owe James Nathan, not me. And I'm not upset. I'm just done." He frowned, confused by her calm. And done with what? She didn't answer, her eyes on the window where fireflies blinked in the dusk. 3 weeks to Columbus. She'd sell her typewriter tomorrow, maybe her winter coat. Every dollar was a brick in the wall between her and this life. August 1st, 1948, broke over Millfield, Ohio with a humid dawn, the air heavy with the scent of river mud and blooming dogwoods. Emma Carter woke in her small bedroom, the patched quilt tangled around her legs, her satchel holding the tin box with her Columbus Medical College acceptance letter tucked under her pillow. Today was her 19th birthday, but the date meant more. It was her last day in Millfield. She'd booked a train ticket to Columbus for tomorrow morning, her diner tips, and the $20 from selling her typewriter barely covering the fare. The radio hummed with Ella Fitzgerald's "Dream a Little Dream of Me," a bittersweet echo of the dreams she'd once had for a life with Nathan Hayes. Those dreams were ash, and her future lay in a dorm room 80 miles away. Nathan had been different lately, his hazel eyes watching her with unease as if sensing her resolve. Yesterday, she'd sold the scarf she'd knitted for him to the junk dealer, pocketing $5. She'd also demanded $50 for the radio he'd given Tommy, citing her unpaid share of its cost. Nathan, stunned, had paid her in crumpled bills, his silence heavy with guilt. Emma didn't care. Every cent was a step toward freedom. She dressed in her best faded green skirt and packed her suitcase, 2 dresses, a notebook, and her mother's locket. The rest she'd leave behind. By noon, Nathan returned from the garage early, his bicycle rattling with a cardboard box tied to the back. "Happy birthday, Emma," he said, his smile tentative, almost hopeful. He handed her a cassette tape, Doris Day's Sentimental Journey. "I know you ladies love this stuff," he said, grinning. Emma's fingers tightened on the tape. She loved Ella Fitzgerald, not Doris Day. Susan was the one who hummed Doris's tunes. Nathan didn't know her, never had. "Thanks," she said flatly, setting the tape aside. "Let's eat out tonight," he said, his voice unusually bright. "I got us tickets for the Roman holiday at the Majestic Theater. Starts at 7. Emma's heart twitched. She'd begged to see a movie with him in her past life, dreaming of holding hands in the dark like other couples. He'd always been too busy. Now, with her train leaving at dawn, she nodded. "Sure, Nathan." It was for the old Emma, the girl who'd loved him, not for her. At Rosie's diner, Nathan ordered her favorite chicken fried steak and mashed potatoes with a slice of birthday pie. The diner buzzed with locals, the jukebox playing Hank Williams, the air thick with grease and coffee. "From now on, we'll do this every year," Nathan said, his eyes soft. Emma ate quietly, the words hollow. He'd said the same in her past life, then spent every birthday after with Susan and Tommy. She glanced at the clock, 6:30. The theater was a short walk away. Outside, the majestic young couples lined up, their laughter mingling with the scent of popcorn and summer dust. The marquee glowed Roman holiday in bold letters, Audrey Hepburn's face beaming down. Nathan bought a bag of popcorn and offered it to Emma. She shook her head, her satchel slung over her shoulder, the letter safe inside. "Want a soda?" he asked, his voice eager, like he was trying to win her back. Before she could answer, a frantic voice cut through the crowd. "Nathan, thank God!" Susan rushed up, her face pale, her auburn hair loose. "Tommy's burning up with fever. Please take us to the hospital." Emma's eyes narrowed. Susan's timing was too perfect, and her tears were too quick. In her past life, Emma would have begged Nathan to stay. Now she saw the performance, Susan's grip on his arm, and her eyes flicked to Emma, daring her to protest. Nathan's face crumpled with worry. "Emma." "I'm sorry," he said, the movie tickets limp in his hand. "I have to help them," Susan sobbed. "I'm just a widow, Nathan. If anything happens to Tommy, I can't go on." Her voice broke, but Emma caught the glint in her eyes' triumph. "Go," Emma said, her voice calm, almost amused. "Tommy comes first." Nathan hesitated, torn. "Take a ticket," he said, pressing one into her hand. "I'll drop them at the hospital and come back." Emma nodded, knowing he wouldn't. Susan's grip tightened on his arm, and they vanished into the crowd, Tommy's whines fading. Emma stood alone, the popcorn bag discarded on the ground. "Goodbye, Nathan," she whispered, her breath steady. She didn't enter the theater. Instead, she walked to a boarding house near the train station, her suitcase light in her hand. The room was small, the mattress lumpy, but Emma slept soundly, the train whistle in her dreams. At 5 a.m., she boarded the Columbus-bound train, the engine's rumble a promise. As Millfield faded behind her, the fields stretching into dawn, Emma felt no pain, only freedom. Her new life was about to begin. The dawn of August 2nd, 1948, broke over Millfield, Ohio, with a gentle hum of crickets and the faint whistle of the Columbus-bound train echoing through the valley. Emma Carter stood outside her boarding house near the station, her suitcase packed with 2 dresses, a notebook, and her mother's locket. Inside her satchel, the tin box held her Columbus Medical College acceptance letter, its edges worn but sacred. The air smelled of coal dust and morning dew, the sky streaked with pink as the train's headlamp gleamed in the distance. Emma's heart was light, her resolve ironclad. Today she'd forever leave Nathan Hayes, Susan Miller, and Millfield behind. Yesterday's birthday had been her final test. Nathan's gesture dinner at Rosie's diner, tickets to Roman holiday, a Doris Day tape, had stirred memories of the girl who'd loved him. Still, Susan's staged emergency, Tommy's fever, had shattered the illusion. Emma had let Nathan go, knowing Susan's grip would keep him. She'd spent the night in this boarding house, its creaky floors and musty quilts, a small price for freedom. With $75 from selling her typewriter scarf and Nathan's radio, she had just enough for the train fare and a week's meals in Columbus. As she waited, voices drifted from a nearby alley, sharp-heated. Emma recognized Susan's tone, high and defensive, arguing with Mrs. Jenkins, the grocer's wife. "You've got no proof I made up that stalker." Susan snapped her auburn hair loose, her red dress wrinkled. Mrs. Jenkins scoffed. "The whole town was talking, Susan. You've been cozying up to Nathan moving into Emma's house like you own it. That lurking man was just your cousin Lou, right? Trying to scare Emma out?" Susan's voice faltered. "You don't understand. Nathan loves me, not her. He's only with Emma because of some old family promise." Emma stepped closer, hidden by a stack of crates, her lips curving into a cold smile. Susan's plan unraveled, and Millfield's gossip mill exposed her lies. Mrs. Jenkins pressed on. "You told Tommy to call Nathan Daddy. Didn't you? Shame on you for using that boy." Susan's reply was sharp, but her voice cracked. "Tommy needs a father. Nathan's all we've got since James died. And Emma, she's leaving. I heard her talking about some college. She doesn't want him." Mrs. Jenkins snorted. "Good for Emma. She deserves better than being your maid." The train whistle blew sharp and final. Emma turned away, her amusement tinged with pity. Susan's desperation was evident. She'd planned to permanently claim Nathan and the house, betting on Emma's old compliance. But Emma was no longer that girl. She boarded the train, the carriage rattling as it pulled away from Millfield. The fields blurred past cornstalks bowing in the morning light, the Ohio River glinting like a promise. She opened her satchel, touched the tin box, and whispered, "This is it, Emma Carter. Your new life starts now." The journey took 4 hours, the train's rhythm lulling her into a quiet hope. Columbus emerged on the horizon, its brick buildings and bustling streets a world away from Millfield's dusty roads. At the station, Emma stepped onto the platform, the air alive with the clang of streetcars and the chatter of travelers. A young woman in a nurse's cap bumped into her, apologizing with a smile. "First time in the city?" she asked. Emma nodded, her heart lifting. First time for everything, she said, clutching her satchel. The woman pointed her toward the college, and Emma walked on. The August sun was warm on her shoulders, and the weight of Millfield fell away with every step. At Columbus Medical College, the admissions office was a flurry of typewriters and stern secretaries. Emma presented her letter, her hands steady despite the flutter in her chest. The clerk, a gray-haired woman with kind eyes, stamped her forms. "Welcome, Miss Carter. You're in the pharmaceutical research program. Classes start Monday." Emma exhaled, the reality sinking in. She was here not as Nathan's fiancée, but as Emma Carter, future doctor. The campus sprawled before her, red brick hall students with books under their arms, the scent of chemicals wafting from a lab. This was her place, her future, and no one would take it away. September 1948 brought crisp air to Columbus, Ohio, the leaves on High Street turning gold as Emma Carter settled into her dorm at Columbus Medical College. The room was small, with a narrow bed and a desk scarred by past students, but to Emma it was a palace. Her satchel, now emptied of the tin box, held her textbooks, their pages crisp with promise. The campus buzzed with energy, students hurrying to lectures, the clatter of typewriters, the faint hum of radio broadcasts discussing polio vaccines. Emma's days were a whirlwind of classes, from organic chemistry to pharmacology, and she spent her nights in the lab, pipetting solutions under flickering lights. She was no longer the Millfield girl who'd scrubbed floors for Nathan Hayes. She was a scientist in the making, her reborn resolve fueling every step. Her roommate Lily Thompson became her anchor. Lily, a wiry girl from Cincinnati with a sharp laugh, was studying nursing, but shared Emma's hunger for knowledge. Over coffee in the dorm's cramped kitchen, they bonded over late-night study sessions, dissecting compounds and debating treatments for polio, the disease gripping the nation. "You're a natural," Emma Lily said one night, her glasses fogged from lab steam. "Most girls here want a husband. You want to change the world." Emma smiled, stirring her coffee. "I gave up enough for a man once, never again." But the path wasn't smooth. Professor Harlan, a gruff biochemist with a penchant for dismissing women, challenged Emma's place in his class. "This isn't a sewing circle, Miss Carter," he'd barked when she questioned his lecture on penicillin synthesis. Emma held her ground, presenting a hypothesis on improving antibiotic yields, her voice steady, despite her racing heart. The room fell silent, and Harlan's scowl softened. "Not bad," he muttered, assigning her extra lab time. It was a small victory, but it lit a fire in her. She spent hours refining her work, her hands steady as she measured reagents, her mind alive with possibility. Columbus itself was a revelation. Emma and Lily explored the city on weekends, wandering the Ohio State Fair's crowded stalls, sampling fried dough and marveling at newfangled TVs. The streets hummed with post-war optimism, cars honking, veterans in crisp uniforms, posters urging polio research donations. Emma felt part of something bigger, a nation rebuilding, and she was determined to contribute. Her past life in Millfield with Nathan's betrayal and Susan's schemes felt like a distant dream. Nathan had sent letters 3, all unopened, now tucked in a drawer. She didn't need his apologies or excuses. One October evening, as leaves skittered across the campus quad, Lily burst into the dorm, her eyes wide. "Emma, you won't believe what I heard from my cousin in Millfield." She sat on Emma's bed, breathless. Susan Miller's in trouble. That stalker, she claimed, total lie. She paid a drifter to scare you out of the house. The town caught on, and now she's persona non grata. And get this, she's been telling everyone Nathan's marrying her, but he's been dodging her, spending nights at the garage. Emma's lips twitched, a mix of amusement and indifference. Susan's unraveling was no surprise. Her lies had been flimsy, even in Millfield. And Nathan, Emma asked, more curious than invested. Lily leaned in. "He's a mess. Asked your old teacher, Mr. Thompson, about you. Found out you're here and flipped. Said he's coming to Columbus to fix things. Good luck with that." Emma's heart skipped, not from longing but from resolve. She didn't want Nathan's guilt or his promises. She was building something real, test tubes, equations, a life of purpose. The lab called its fluorescent lights a beacon. She grabbed her notebook, leaving Nathan's letters behind, and headed to her next experiment. The scent of chemicals and the hum of progress drowned out Millfield's ghosts. Her new life was here, and it was hers alone. October 1950 painted Columbus, Ohio, with a crisp autumn glow, the maples along High Street ablaze with red and gold. Emma Carter, now 21, and in her third year at Columbus Medical College, walked across the campus quad, her lab coat crisp, her satchel heavy with pharmacology notes. The air carried the scent of fallen leaves and coffee from a nearby cart, mingling with the hum of students debating Truman's policies and polio vaccine trials. Emma's life was a rhythm of lectures, lab experiments, and late-night talks with her roommate Lily Thompson about cracking the code to better antibiotics. Millfield, Nathan Hayes, and Susan Miller were distant memories, their weight fading like the Ohio River's morning mist. She'd ignored Nathan's letters, 5 now unopened in her dorm drawer, her focus fixed on a future of saving lives. One chilly afternoon, as Emma left the chemistry lab, a figure stood by the dorm steps, his silhouette slumped against a lamppost. Nathan Hayes, thinner than she remembered his mechanic's overalls replaced by a worn jacket, his head and arm bandaged. Once bright with quiet charm, his hazel eyes were shadowed with exhaustion. "Emma," he called, his voice hoarse, staggering toward her. She froze, her breath catching not from love but from the shock of seeing him in her new world. "Why'd you leave without a word?" he asked, his voice trembling like a boy lost. "I searched everywhere," asked Mr. Thompson. "I found out you're here at college." Emma's jaw tightened, her satchel gripped like a shield. "What do you want?" "Nathan." Her tone was cold, her reborn memories sharp. Nathan's ledger, Susan's red dress, the will that gave away her home. He stepped closer, wincing, his bandaged arm stiff. "I was on a job towing a truck on Route 33. It flipped, pinned me. I was out for weeks, saw things." He paused, his eyes red-rimmed. "I saw you, Emma, in a vision. You found my will, Susan and Tommy, at our house. You collapsed, died. I saw it all while unconscious, like I was reborn with the truth." Her heart skipped, a chill creeping up her spine. Nathan reborn too. His injury had unlocked the same clarity her death had given her, a glimpse of her past life's betrayal. She steadied herself, her voice firm. "That's not my life anymore, Nathan. I'm here to study, serve my country, and not be your wife." He flinched, his face crumpling. "We're engaged, Emma. You're mine. I'll file a new marriage license, move here, and work at a garage in Columbus." His voice rose, desperate. "I love you, always have. Susan was just responsibility. James saved my life, and I owed her." Emma's laugh was sharp, humorless. "You loved me. You gave Susan half our money in the home while I worked double shifts at Rosie's. You didn't know me, Nathan. You still don't." She stepped back, her lab coat catching the breeze. "Go back to Millfield. Live with Susan and Tommy. I don't want you." His eyes widened, a child facing rejection. "You don't mean that," he stammered. "I'll prove it. I'll transfer here." She shook her head, turning toward the dorm. "Believe what you want. It changes nothing." As she walked away, Nathan's voice echoed, "Emma, wait. I'll come back." She didn't look back, the quad's chatter swallowing his plea. Inside, Lily was waiting, her nursing textbooks spread across the desk. "Who was that guy?" she asked, peering out the window. Emma set her satchel down, her hands steady. "Nobody important." Lily raised an eyebrow but didn't press. Later, over coffee, she shared gossip from her cousin in Millfield, Susan Miller's in deep water. "That stalker," she claimed. "She paid a guy to scare you out. The town's shunning her now, and Nathan tried to cut her off, telling Tommy to call him Uncle, not Daddy." Susan flipped, drugged his coffee one night, got him to, you know, threatened to make a scene unless he married her. He did, but the garage fired him for the scandal. He's a wreck. Emma sipped her coffee, her face calm but her mind turning. Susan's schemes had trapped Nathan just as her rebirth freed her. She felt no anger, only a distant pity. Her life was here, test tubes, equations, a polio trial she'd joined last week. The lab's fluorescent hum called her back louder than Nathan's promises. She opened her notebook, her pen scratching out a new formula, Millfield's ghosts, fading into the autumn dusk. January 1985 blanketed Millfield, Ohio, in a dry, biting cold, the fields along Route 33 dusted with snow, the muddy roads of Emma Carter's youth, now paved highways lined with neon-lit diners and suburban homes. At 56, Emma stood on the town hall stage, her gray-streaked hair pulled back, her tailored coat a far cry from the patched dresses of 1948. She was a renowned pharmacologist invited to speak on her team's breakthrough AIDS drug, a decades-long effort that had earned her national acclaim. The hall buzzed with locals, their sleek Chevys and Fords parked outside, a testament to Millfield's transformation from rural outpost to thriving suburb. The air smelled of wood smoke and fresh coffee, the stage's microphone crackling, as Emma spoke of science, hope, and healing. Her journey had been long. After graduating from Columbus Medical College in 1952, Emma earned a master's in pharmaceutical research, joining a national initiative to combat infectious diseases. Her team's work, hundreds of papers, dozens of drugs, had saved countless lives, from polio vaccines in the 50s to AIDS treatments now. She'd faced skepticism as a woman in science, but her breakthroughs silenced doubters. Offstage, her friend Lily Thompson, now a head nurse in Cincinnati, cheered her on their bond, unbroken by years. Emma had never married her heart whole with research and friendships. Her Millfield passed a faint scar. Nathan Hayes, Susan Miller, and their betrayal were memories she'd buried long ago. After her speech, the town hall glowed with pride, locals clapping as Emma stepped down. The village chief, a stout man in a wool suit, approached hesitantly. "Dr. Carter, someone's asking for you. He says he knows you and needs to talk." Emma nodded, curious but calm. A frail figure stood outside, under a bare oak tree, leaning on a cane. His skin was weathered, his clothes patched, his eyes cloudy but familiar. Nathan Hayes, now 59, a shadow of the proud veteran she'd known. "Emma," he rasped, his voice trembling, "you did it. You've done great things for our country." Her breath caught recognition flooding her. Nathan, aged and broken, carried the weight of decades. "Are you all right?" she asked softly. "What about Susan and Tommy?" His face twisted, a bitter smile like a leaf clinging to a dying branch. "Susan's gone. Ran off with some guy years ago, never came back." Emma's heart sank, and Tommy, Nathan's eyes shimmered with tears. He went too, and got mixed up with a bad crowd in his teens and was beaten to death in 70. His voice broke, his cane trembling in his hand. Emma exhaled, stunned. The boy she'd seen in 1948 clutching toy planes had met a tragic end. Nathan's story spilled out, halting and raw. After Emma left, Susan's drugging scheme forced their marriage, but it wasn't perfect. She fought over money, took his savings for bad investments, and left when he was discharged from the garage after a second injury, a leg crushed in a tow job. Tommy, rebellious and lost, fell into crime, his death breaking what was left of Nathan. "It's my fault," Nathan said, his eyes hollow. "I didn't raise him right. I trusted Susan, and I thought I owed her to James." He paused, his gaze heavy. "When I was hurt in 50, I saw it all, your death. Susan's demands, my will. Like I was reborn, seeing how I failed you." Emma's heart jolted. His rebirth, like hers, had come from pain, a vision of her past life's collapse. She looked at him, his frail form contrasting with her strength. Do you hate me? He asked, his voice small, eyes pleading. She shook her head, her voice gentle. No, Nathan. I stopped hating you long ago. We weren't meant to be. My life's been full science purpose. I've no regrets. Nathan nodded, tears spilling down his weathered cheeks. I'm sorry, Emma. I loved only you, but I was too blind to show it. She smiled softly, a weight lifted. Live your life, Nathan. Our country doesn't abandon its people. She turned to the waiting car, and the driver was ready to take her to Columbus. As Millfield's lights faded, the snow-dusted fields glowing under a winter sunset, Emma felt a deep peace. Her work, new drugs, new lives saved lay ahead. Nathan's regret was his own. Her heart was free, her legacy written in the lives she'd touched.